Our journey begins not with a bang, but with the subtle whisper of change, a shift in the very fabric of the Earth's climate that would irrevocably alter the course of human destiny. For hundreds of thousands of years, humanity had lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers, small bands of resilient individuals perpetually moving across vast landscapes, their lives intimately tied to the rhythms of nature. They relied entirely on the bounty of the wild, their tools rudimentary yet effective for survival in a challenging world. This was the Paleolithic era, a time of profound simplicity and profound struggle, where existence was a daily testament to adaptability. But as the calendar turned towards 10,000 BC, the last great ice age, punctuated by the Younger Dryas reversal, was finally receding. The colossal glaciers that had sculpted continents for millennia began their slow, deliberate retreat, unleashing torrents of meltwater and reshaping the world. This transition from the Pleistocene to the Holocene epoch brought with it dramatic climatic shifts and environmental transformations. Vast ice sheets gave way to burgeoning forests, arid steppes became fertile grasslands, and new coastlines emerged as sea levels rose. These changes presented both unprecedented challenges and unforeseen opportunities for the human species, forcing new adaptations and sparking the embers of innovation. This narrative embraces the concept of slow history, a deliberate pace that acknowledges the immense stretches of time over which human societies have evolved. It's a recognition that monumental shifts, often condensed into single sentences in textbooks, were in reality the culmination of generations of incremental changes, countless small decisions, and the slow, often imperceptible, unfolding of human ingenuity. Within this period, roughly between 10,000 BC and 8,000 BC, we witnessed the Mesolithic period, or the Middle Stone Age. As the ice retreated, humans adapted to these newly emerging environments. Forests provided new resources, coasts offered abundant marine life, and rivers became vital arteries for travel and sustenance. This adaptation spurred the development of more specialized tools. Microliths, tiny, geometrically shaped stone tools, were hafted onto wooden or bone handles to create composite implements like sickles and harpoons. Fishing hooks became common, allowing for more efficient exploitation of aquatic resources, and the bow and arrow revolutionized hunting, enabling safer and more effective pursuit of game. Crucially, in certain resource-rich pockets of the world, particularly in the Levant with the Natufian culture, we see the very first, tentative signs of settled life. These were not yet agricultural societies, but communities that could sustain themselves in one location for extended periods due to the reliable abundance of wild cereals and game. This increased understanding of local flora and fauna was a critical precursor. It was here, in these nascent settlements, that the earliest stirrings of plant cultivation and animal domestication began, perhaps as accidental discoveries, as discarded seeds sprouted near encampments, or as orphaned wild animals were brought into human proximity, slowly, almost imperceptibly, setting the stage for the greatest transformation in human history. Early communal living and more complex social structures began to emerge, laying the groundwork for what was to come. The period from 8000 BC to 3000 BC marks a pivot point, a profound and irreversible shift in the human story known as the Neolithic Revolution. This was the great transformation, moving humanity from an existence defined by foraging, hunting, gathering, and fishing, to one centered on food production. It was, arguably, the most fundamental change in human history since our ancestors first mastered fire, fundamentally reshaping human societies, economies, and our relationship with the natural world. This revolution was not a singular event, but a series of independent origins across various regions of the globe. In the Fertile Crescent of Southwest Asia, communities began cultivating wild wheat and barley, while simultaneously domesticating sheep and goats. Thousands of miles away, in China, rice and millet became staple crops, alongside the domestication of pigs. Mesoamerica saw the independent development of maize, beans, and squash, forming a complementary agricultural triad. In the Andes, potatoes and llamas were brought into human control, and in various parts of Africa, sorghum and yams formed the basis of early agriculture. The why of agriculture remains a complex question, likely a confluence of factors: increasing population pressure demanding more reliable food sources, climate change creating new opportunities for certain plants, accidental discovery as seeds sprouted in favorable conditions, and a long, slow process of coevolution between humans and the plants and animals they began to rely upon. The domestication process itself was not a swift act of conquest, but a patient, generational endeavor of selective breeding, gradually shaping wild species to better serve human needs. The consequences of this agricultural shift were nothing short of revolutionary. Foremost among them was sedentarism. No longer bound by the need to follow migrating herds or seasonal plant cycles, humans began to establish permanent settlements. Small villages grew into larger towns, laying the groundwork for future cities. This stable food supply, in turn, fueled unprecedented population growth, as higher birth rates and reduced infant mortality became possible. The ability to produce and, crucially, to store food surplus was transformative. This surplus freed a portion of the population from the immediate demands of food acquisition, leading to the specialization of labor. Individuals could now dedicate their time to crafts, governance, religious duties, or warfare, rather than solely to farming. This specialization inevitably led to social stratification, with the emergence of hierarchies. Leaders, priests, warriors, and skilled artisans, all supported by the agricultural labor of others. New technologies emerged directly from the demands of this new way of life. Pottery became essential for storing grains and liquids, protecting them from pests and spoilage. Weaving developed to create textiles from domesticated plant fibers like flax and cotton, or animal fibers like wool, providing clothing and shelter. Grinding stones became crucial for processing grains into flour. However, this transformation also brought significant environmental impact. Deforestation was necessary to clear land for fields. Extensive irrigation systems were developed to water crops, and the very landscape was modified to suit human agricultural needs. In close proximity to domesticated animals and accumulating human waste, new diseases emerged and spread more easily within denser populations. A prime case study for this period is the Fertile Crescent. Here, sites like Jericho and Catalhook offer some of the earliest and most compelling evidence of systematic agriculture and settled life. Jericho, with its massive stone walls, stands as an early testament to communal effort and defense. Catalhook, a sprawling Neolithic town, shows complex social organization and early forms of art and ritual. Even earlier, sites like Göbekli Tepe, dating back to the pre-pottery Neolithic, reveal astonishing monumental architecture and complex religious practices long before the advent of full-scale agriculture, suggesting that communal effort and belief systems were already highly developed. The development of sophisticated irrigation techniques in these regions was vital, turning arid lands into productive fields and allowing for even greater food surpluses. As agricultural societies matured, the slow accumulation of food surplus and the increasing density of populations created the conditions for an even more profound transformation, the urban revolution. This was the rise of complexity, where the scale of human organization expanded dramatically from villages to true cities. The sheer number of people living in close proximity demanded organized governance, a formal structure to manage resources, resolve disputes, and coordinate large-scale projects. This led to the development of impressive public works, monumental temples dedicated to deities, massive defensive walls to protect burgeoning populations, and intricate irrigation systems that were essential for sustaining the agricultural base of these growing urban centers. Technological innovation continued to accelerate. The invention of the plow revolutionized agriculture, allowing for more efficient cultivation of larger areas and significantly increasing yields. The wheel, initially used in pottery, was soon adapted for transportation, leading to carts and chariots that transformed trade and warfare. This era also saw the dawn of metallurgy, beginning with the Copper Age around 5000 BC, as humans learned to extract and work with copper. This slowly transitioned into the Bronze Age around 3300 BC, as the discovery of alloying copper with tin to create bronze yielded a stronger, more versatile metal for tools, weapons, and art. Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, often referred to as the cradle of civilization, provides the clearest example of this urban transformation. Here, the Sumerian city-states such as Uruk, Uar, and Lagash emerged as independent political and economic entities, each with its own patron deity and ruling dynasty. It was in Sumer that the invention of writing, cuneiform, took place around 3200 BC. Initially developed for record-keeping of agricultural surpluses and trade transactions, cuneiform quickly evolved to encompass laws, religious texts, and epic literature, most famously the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the earliest surviving works of literature. The Sumerians also made remarkable advancements in mathematics, developing a base 60 system that influences our timekeeping, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, and angular measurement, 360 degrees in a circle, to this day. Their astronomical observations were meticulous, and they formulated some of the earliest legal codes, such as the Code of Yarnamu. Towering ziggurats, monumental step-temple structures, dominated the skylines of these cities, symbolizing the close relationship between religion and political power. Early forms of kingship and a burgeoning bureaucracy were essential for managing the complex affairs of these urban centers. To the west, along the fertile banks of the Nile, ancient Egypt developed its own unique and enduring civilization, often called the Gift of the Nile, due to its dependence on the river's annual floods. Around 3100 BC, Upper and Lower Egypt were unified under a single pharaoh, a divine ruler who served as the intermediary between gods and humans, embodying the stability and prosperity of the kingdom. The Egyptians developed their distinctive hieroglyphic writing system, used for monumental inscriptions, religious texts, and administrative records. Their monumental architecture, most famously the pyramids and grand temples, stands as a testament to their engineering prowess, organizational capacity, and profound belief in the afterlife, which also drove their sophisticated practices of mummification. Beyond grand structures, the Egyptians made significant contributions to medicine, with detailed anatomical knowledge and surgical techniques, as well as advancements in astronomy and engineering. Their understanding of the cosmos and their meticulous record-keeping allowed them to develop a highly accurate solar calendar. The Bronze Age, spanning roughly from 3000 BC to 1200 BC, saw the emergence of complex, interconnected societies across the Mediterranean and Near East. This was a world of vibrant trade networks, where goods, ideas, and technologies flowed between powerful kingdoms like the Hittites in Anatolia, the Mycenaeans in Greece, the Egyptians along the Nile, and various city-states in the Levant, such as Ugarit. Diplomacy and international relations were surprisingly sophisticated, as evidenced by the Amarna letters, a collection of diplomatic correspondence between the Egyptian pharaohs and other Near Eastern rulers, revealing a complex web of alliances, rivalries, and negotiations. However, this interconnected world was fragile. Around 1200 BC, a mysterious and widespread catastrophe, often attributed to the enigmatic Sea Peoples, a confederation of seafaring raiders whose origins remain debated, plunged the entire region into a period of widespread destruction and upheaval. Major cities were sacked, empires collapsed, and trade routes were severed. The consequences were dire: widespread destruction of urban centers, a significant loss of literacy as complex administrative systems broke down, and the onset of Dark Ages in many regions, particularly in Greece. This period of collapse marked a dramatic end to the Bronze Age and ushered in a new era. Out of the ashes of the Bronze Age collapse, a new metal, iron, rose to prominence, ushering in the Iron Age. Iron was more abundant than copper and tin, making it a more democratic metal, accessible to a wider segment of the population. This led to the development of new military technologies and strategies, as iron weapons and tools became widespread. This era saw the rise of new, formidable empires that would reshape the geopolitical landscape. The Assyrian Empire, originating in northern Mesopotamia, became a dominant force through sheer military might and a reputation for ruthless terror tactics. Their highly organized and disciplined army, equipped with iron weapons, conquered vast territories, from Egypt to Persia, establishing an empire of unprecedented scale through brutal efficiency. Their legacy is one of military innovation, but also of widespread destruction and forced deportations. Following the Assyrian decline, the Persian Empire emerged under the visionary leadership of Cyrus the Great in the 6th century BCE. The Persians built an even larger empire, stretching from Greece to India, characterized not just by military conquests but by administrative genius and a surprising degree of religious tolerance, particularly under Cyrus and Darius I. Zoroastrianism, with its emphasis on dualism and moral choice, was the dominant religion. The empire was governed through a sophisticated system of satrapies, provinces, connected by vast road networks, most famously the Royal Road, which facilitated rapid communication and trade, allowing for efficient control over diverse populations. The period from roughly 800 BC to 500 CE witnessed the flourishing of what are often termed classical civilizations. These societies, particularly in Greece and Rome, laid foundational questions about ethics, politics, metaphysics, and the nature of knowledge that continue to influence Western thought to this day. Ancient Greece was not a unified empire but a collection of independent city-states, polis, each with its own distinct character, such as the philosophical and democratic Athens, the militaristic Sparta, and the mercantile Corinth. It was in Athens that the concept of democracy originated, albeit a limited form that excluded women, slaves, and foreigners. Yet, its emphasis on citizen participation and public debate was revolutionary. Greek philosophy reached unprecedented heights with figures like Socrates, who challenged conventional wisdom through relentless questioning, Plato, who explored ideal forms and the nature of reality, and Aristotle, whose systematic approach to logic, ethics, politics, and natural science profoundly influenced later Western thought. The Greeks excelled in arts and architecture, exemplified by the Parthenon, their lifelike sculptures, and the development of drama, with its powerful tragedies and insightful comedies. Their contributions to science and mathematics were equally significant, with Pythagoras exploring numerical relationships, Euclid systematizing geometry, and Archimedes making breakthroughs in mechanics and hydrostatics. Militarily, the hoplite phalanx was a formidable infantry formation, and Athenian naval power was crucial in defending against the Persian invasions. The conquests of Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC ushered in the Hellenistic Age, a period where Greek culture, language, and ideas spread across a vast empire, blending with local traditions and creating new centers of learning like Alexandria. To the west, ancient Rome rose from a small city-state to a vast empire. Its political structure evolved from a republic, with its complex system of checks and balances, to an empire under the rule of emperors. Roman law was a monumental achievement, developing principles of justice, property, and governance that formed the basis of many modern Western legal systems. Their engineering prowess was legendary, evident in their extensive network of roads that connected the empire, magnificent aqueducts that supplied cities with water, sturdy bridges, and the innovative use of concrete, which allowed for grand structures like the Pantheon. The Roman military, with its highly disciplined legions, was the engine of its expansion, conquering vast territories across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. The Pax Romana, a period of relative peace and prosperity lasting for over 2 centuries, allowed for the widespread spread of Roman culture, including the Latin language, Roman architecture, and administrative practices, which left an indelible mark on the regions they controlled. However, the immense size and complexity of the empire eventually led to internal decay, economic decline, and external pressures from barbarian tribes, culminating in the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 CE, though the Eastern Roman, Byzantine, Empire would continue for another 1,000 years. While Greece and Rome shaped the Western world, equally significant and influential civilizations flourished in the East and the Americas during this classical period. Ancient India saw the rise and fall of several powerful entities. The earliest major civilization was the Indus Valley Civilization, centered around cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, which boasted sophisticated urban planning, advanced drainage systems, and a mysterious undeciphered writing system. Its decline around 1900 BC remains an enigma. Following this, the Vedic period saw the development of early Hinduism, with its sacred texts, the Vedas, and the gradual emergence of the complex caste system. The 6th century BC was a period of spiritual ferment, giving rise to Buddhism, founded by Siddhartha Gautama, and Jainism, founded by Mahavira, both offering new spiritual paths and challenging existing social norms. The Mauryan Empire, founded by Chandragupta Maurya in the late 4th century BC, unified much of the Indian subcontinent. Its most famous emperor, Ashoka the Great, initially a fierce conqueror, later converted to Buddhism and became a zealous proponent of its peaceful principles, contributing significantly to its spread. Later, the Gupta Empire, c. 320 to 550 CE, is often referred to as the Golden Age of India, marked by remarkable advancements in mathematics, including the revolutionary concept of zero, the decimal system, and the development of Arabic numerals, which originated in India. Astronomy, medicine, and Sanskrit literature also flourished during this period. In ancient China, a series of powerful dynasties shaped its long and continuous history. The Shang dynasty, circa 1600 to 1046 BC, is the earliest confirmed dynasty, known for its bronze metallurgy and oracle bone script. The Zhou dynasty, c. 1046 to 256 BC, introduced the concept of the mandate of heaven. This period also saw the emergence of foundational Chinese philosophies, Confucianism, emphasizing social harmony, filial piety, and good governance, Taoism, advocating for living in harmony with nature, and legalism, promoting strict laws and centralized power. These philosophies profoundly shaped Chinese society and governance for millennia. After a period of warring states, China was unified under Qin Shi Huang of the Qin dynasty, 221 to 206 BC, who initiated the construction of the Great Wall, commissioned the Terracotta Army, and standardized weights, measures, and the written language, creating a unified imperial system. The subsequent Han dynasty, 206 BC to 20 CE, expanded the empire, established the Silk Road connecting China to the west, invented paper, and institutionalized the civil service examination system, creating a meritocratic bureaucracy. Throughout these dynasties, China saw continuous technological innovations, including early forms of the compass, gunpowder, and printing. Across the oceans, the Americas developed sophisticated civilizations entirely independently. In Mesoamerica, the Olmec civilization, c. 1400 to 400 BC, is often considered the mother culture, influencing later civilizations with its colossal carved stone heads, elaborate ritual centers, and early forms of writing and calendar systems. In the Andes, the Chavin culture, c. 900 to 200 BC, exerted significant religious and artistic influence across a wide region, and developed early metallurgy. Later, the Nazca Lions, c. 200 BC 600 CE. In Peru, massive geoglyphs etched into the desert floor remain a testament to their engineering and astronomical understanding, alongside their complex irrigation systems. These early American civilizations, though often overlooked in Eurocentric historical narratives, represent extraordinary achievements in human organization, art, and adaptation to diverse environments. The fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 CE ushered in a period in Europe often controversially labeled the Dark Ages. While certainly a time of decentralization and political fragmentation, it was far from a period of stagnation. Instead, it was a transformative era that laid the foundations for medieval, and, eventually, modern Europe. Political power became highly localized, giving rise to feudalism, a system of reciprocal obligations between lords and vassals, and manorialism, an economic system centered on self-sufficient agricultural estates. In this fragmented landscape, the Catholic Church emerged as the primary unifying force, providing spiritual guidance, social services, and a common cultural framework. Monasteries became vital centers for monasticism, preserving classical knowledge, copying manuscripts, and fostering intellectual life amidst the chaos. A brief period of revival occurred under Charlemagne in the late 8th and early 9th centuries, leading to the Carolingian Renaissance, which saw a resurgence in learning, art, and architecture, aiming to recreate the glory of the Roman Empire. To the east, the Byzantine Empire, the continuation of the Eastern Roman Empire, thrived with its capital at Constantinople. It preserved Roman traditions, law, Justinian's code, and Greek and Roman learning, acting as a crucial bridge between antiquity and the Renaissance. Constantinople remained a vibrant center of trade and culture, its magnificent Hagia Sophia a testament to Byzantine architectural and artistic genius. Meanwhile, a new global power was rapidly emerging. The 7th century CE witnessed the rise of Islam with the revelations to the Prophet Muhammad and the compilation of the Quran. This new faith rapidly spread, leading to the swift expansion of the Islamic Empire across the Middle East, North Africa, and into parts of Europe. This vast empire ushered in the Islamic Golden Age, a period of unparalleled intellectual and cultural flourishing. Baghdad, with its legendary House of Wisdom, became the intellectual heart of the world, where scholars from diverse backgrounds translated, preserved, and expanded upon Greek, Roman, Persian, and Indian texts. This led to groundbreaking advancements in mathematics, the development of algebra and algorithms, astronomy, observatories, precise astronomical tables, medicine, hospitals, surgical techniques, philosophy, Avicenna, Averroes, optics, and cartography. Islamic trade networks connected East and West, facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies across vast distances. As Europe moved into the High Middle Ages, roughly 1000 to 1300 CE, agricultural innovations like the heavy plow and the three-field system led to increased food production, fueling significant population growth and urbanization. New towns and cities emerged, becoming centers of trade and craft. This era also saw the rise of universities, which became centers of scholasticism, a philosophical and theological movement that sought to reconcile faith and reason. Magnificent Gothic architecture, with its soaring cathedrals and stained glass, symbolized the spiritual aspirations of the age. The Crusades, a series of religious wars, though often brutal, led to increased contact and cultural exchange between Europe and the Islamic world, and significantly impacted trade, bringing new goods and ideas to Europe. However, this period of growth was dramatically interrupted by the Black Death in the 14th century, a devastating plague that wiped out a significant portion of Europe's population, leading to profound social and economic changes, labor shortages, and a questioning of established authorities. While Europe navigated its post-Roman transformation, Asia and Africa continued their own vibrant and complex historical trajectories, often leading the world in innovation and cultural development. In China, the dynastic cycle continued, marked by periods of immense prosperity and technological advancement. The Tang dynasty, 618 to 907 CE, is often considered a golden age of Chinese history, renowned for its exquisite poetry, vibrant art, and cosmopolitan outlook. The Grand Canal, further expanded during this period, facilitated internal trade and communication. Following a period of fragmentation, the Song dynasty, 960-1279 CE, ushered in an economic revolution. This era saw the widespread use of gunpowder, initially for fireworks, later for weapons, the invention of printing with movable type, and the practical application of the compass for navigation. Advanced ceramics, particularly porcelain, became highly sought after, and the Song period witnessed a level of proto-industrialization, with large-scale iron production. The Yuan dynasty, 1271 to 1368 CE, saw China under Mongol rule, part of the vast Pax Mongolica, which ironically facilitated increased east-west contact, famously documented by Marco Polo. The Ming dynasty, 1368 to 1644 CE, followed, a period of rebuilding and consolidation after Mongol rule, known for its massive naval expeditions led by Xing He in the early 15th century, which reached as far as East Africa, and the significant expansion and reinforcement of the Great Wall. Japan during this period developed its unique feudal system, dominated by the samurai warrior class and their code of Bushido. Shintoism, its indigenous religion, coexisted with the growing influence of Buddhism. This era also saw a flourishing of Japanese culture, with the creation of seminal literature like the tale of Genji, and the development of distinctive art forms and theater styles like No. Southeast Asia was a crossroads of cultures, heavily influenced by both Indian and Chinese traditions. Powerful empires like the Khmer Empire, 9th to 15th centuries, centered around the magnificent temple complex of Angkor Wat, demonstrated incredible architectural and hydraulic engineering skills. Maritime empires like Srivijaya and Majapahit controlled vital trade routes across the Malay archipelago, facilitating the exchange of goods and ideas. Africa during the medieval period was home to powerful and wealthy empires. In West Africa, the Ghana, Mali, and Songhai empires rose to prominence, controlling the lucrative trans-Saharan trade in gold and salt. Timbuktu, within the Mali and Songhai empires, became a renowned center of Islamic learning and scholarship. In southern Africa, the impressive stone architecture of Great Zimbabwe, 11th to 15th centuries, stands as a testament to a sophisticated, indigenous civilization. Along the East African coast, the Swahili city-states flourished, participating in the Indian Ocean trade network, creating a vibrant blend of African and Arab cultures. Further north, in Aksum and Ethiopia, early Christian kingdoms maintained trade relations with the Roman Empire and developed their unique cultural and religious traditions. Before the arrival of Europeans in the late 15th century, the Americas and Oceania were home to a diverse array of complex and sophisticated civilizations, each with unique achievements and adaptations to their environments. In Mesoamerica, the Maya civilization, c. 250 to 900 C, with earlier origins and later post-classic states, was not a unified empire but a network of independent city-states, each with its own ruler. The Maya developed a highly sophisticated writing system, hieroglyphs, advanced mathematics that included the concept of zero, and incredibly precise astronomical observations that allowed them to create complex and accurate calendars. Their monumental architecture, including towering pyramids and elaborate ceremonial centers, still dot the landscapes of modern-day Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize. Following the classic Maya collapse, the Aztec Empire, 14th to 16th centuries, rose to dominance in central Mexico, with its magnificent capital, Tenochtitlan, built on an island in Lake Texcoco. The Aztecs developed a complex tribute system, a rich pantheon of gods, and elaborate religious practices, including human sacrifice, which played a central role in their worldview and statecraft. Before the arrival of Europeans in the late 15th century, the Americas and Oceania were home to a diverse array of complex and sophisticated civilizations, each with unique achievements and adaptations to their environments. In Mesoamerica, the Maya civilization, c. 250 to 900 C, with earlier origins and later post-classic states, was not a unified empire but a network of independent city-states, each with its own ruler. The Maya developed a highly sophisticated writing system, hieroglyphs, advanced mathematics that included the concept of zero, and incredibly precise astronomical observations that allowed them to create complex and accurate calendars. Their monumental architecture, including towering pyramids and elaborate ceremonial centers, still dot the landscapes of modern-day Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize. Following the classic Maya collapse, the Aztec Empire, 14th to 16th centuries, rose to dominance in central Mexico, with its magnificent capital, Tenochtitlan, built on an island in Lake Texcoco. The Aztecs developed a complex tribute system, a rich pantheon of gods, and elaborate religious practices, including human sacrifice, which played a central role in their worldview and statecraft. In the Andes region of South America, the Inca Empire, 15th to 16th centuries, emerged as the largest empire in pre-Columbian America, stretching thousands of miles along the spine of the Andes Mountains. The Inca were master organizers, building an extensive and sophisticated road system that facilitated communication and control across their vast domain. Lacking a written script, they developed the quipu, a system of knotted cords used for record-keeping and possibly narrative. Their agricultural achievements were remarkable, utilizing extensive terracing and irrigation systems to cultivate crops in challenging mountainous terrain. North America was home to a multitude of diverse cultures, each adapting to their specific environments. The Mississippian culture, c. 800-1600 c., centered in the southeastern United States, built large earth mounds, with Cahokia being a major urban center. The Pueblo peoples of the American Southwest developed sophisticated adobe dwellings and complex irrigation systems for agriculture. These cultures, though often less centralized than their Mesoamerican and Andean counterparts, demonstrated remarkable ingenuity in their social organization, resource management, and artistic expression. Finally, Oceania, the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, was settled by the incredible feats of Polynesian navigation. Using sophisticated knowledge of stars, currents, and wave patterns, Polynesian voyagers embarked on epic journeys, settling islands across thousands of miles of open ocean, from Hawaii to New Zealand. These island societies developed unique cultural and social structures, adapting to their isolated environments and creating rich oral traditions, art forms, and complex social hierarchies. These pre-contact civilizations in the Americas and Oceania represent independent trajectories of human development, showcasing the remarkable diversity and ingenuity of human societies across the globe. The turn of the 16th century marked a dramatic shift in global history, ushering in the Age of Exploration, a period of unprecedented European expansion that would fundamentally reshape the world's interconnectedness. The primary motivations for exploration were multifaceted. Europeans, particularly after the Crusades, had developed a taste for exotic goods from Asia, spices, silk, and precious commodities, but the existing land routes were long, dangerous, and controlled by intermediaries. Thus, a fervent search for new sea trade routes to Asia became a driving force. This ambition was enabled by significant technological advancements: the caravel, a nimble and fast-sailing ship, the improved compass for direction, and the astrolabe for celestial navigation. Underlying these economic and technological drivers was also a powerful religious zeal, a continuation of the crusading spirit to spread Christianity, alongside a more secular desire for wealth and glory for monarchs and individual adventurers alike. Key figures spearheaded this era. Vasco da Gama successfully navigated a sea route around Africa to India, opening direct trade with the East. Christopher Columbus, famously, sailed west in search of Asia and instead arrived in the Americas, a continent previously unknown to Europeans. Ferdinand Magellan's expedition achieved the first circumnavigation of the globe, proving the Earth's spherical nature and further expanding European geographical knowledge. The most profound consequence of these voyages was the Columbian Exchange, a vast and unprecedented biological transfer between the Old World, Europe, Asia, Africa, and the New World, the Americas. This exchange involved the movement of plants, animals, and tragically diseases. The impact on indigenous populations in the Americas was devastating, as Old World diseases like smallpox, measles, and influenza, to which Native Americans had no immunity, decimated their numbers on an unimaginable scale. Conversely, new crops from the Americas, such as potatoes, maize, corn, tomatoes, and tobacco, revolutionized agriculture and diets in Europe, Asia, and Africa, leading to significant population growth in those regions. In return, wheat, sugar, and coffee were introduced to the Americas, along with new animals like horses, cattle, and pigs, which profoundly altered the American landscape and indigenous ways of life. This era of exploration quickly transitioned into one of conquest and colonization. The Spanish, armed with superior weaponry and aided by the devastating impact of disease, swiftly conquered the vast Aztec and Inca empires, establishing a massive colonial empire in Central and South America. Other European powers, Portugal, England, France, and the Netherlands, soon followed suit, establishing their own vast colonial holdings across the Americas, Africa, and Asia. This expansion was inextricably linked to the horrific transatlantic slave trade, which forcibly transported millions of Africans across the Atlantic to labor on plantations in the Americas, fueling colonial economies and creating a brutal legacy of exploitation and racial injustice that would endure for centuries. Concurrent with the Age of Exploration, Europe experienced a series of profound intellectual, religious, and scientific transformations that laid the groundwork for the modern world. The Renaissance, roughly 14th to 16th centuries, originating in Italy, marked a rebirth of classical learning and art after the medieval period. It was characterized by humanism, an intellectual movement that emphasized human potential, achievement, and the study of classical Greek and Roman texts. This period saw an explosion of artistic genius, with masterpieces by figures like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael, who pioneered new techniques in painting, sculpture, and architecture. The invention of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg in the mid-15th century was a revolutionary technological advancement. It allowed for the rapid and widespread dissemination of books, ideas, and knowledge, dramatically increasing literacy and challenging the Church's monopoly on information. The Reformation in the 16th century profoundly shook the religious landscape of Europe. Initiated by figures like Martin Luther and John Calvin, it challenged the authority and practices of the Catholic Church, leading to the rise of Protestantism. This religious upheaval sparked decades of religious wars across Europe, but also had a profound impact on political power, as monarchs gained more control over religious affairs, and fostered a spirit of individual thought and interpretation of Scripture. Building on the intellectual ferment of the Renaissance and the questioning spirit of the Reformation, the scientific revolution, 16th to 18th centuries, fundamentally altered humanity's understanding of the natural world. It began with Nicholas Copernicus's revolutionary shift from a geocentric to a heliocentric model of the universe, later supported and refined by Galileo Galilei's telescopic observations. This period saw the development of new methods of inquiry, emphasizing systematic observation, experimentation, and rigorous mathematical reasoning, moving away from purely philosophical or theological explanations. The towering figure of this revolution was Isaac Newton, whose publication of Principia Mathematica laid out his universal laws of motion and universal gravitation, and whose independent development of calculus provided the mathematical tools to describe the universe. Newton's work had a monumental impact on worldview. It presented a mechanistic universe, governed by precise, predictable natural laws, suggesting that the cosmos operated like a grand, intricate machine. This mechanistic worldview, combined with the emphasis on reason and individual liberty, directly fueled the Enlightenment in the 18th century. This intellectual movement championed reason, individualism, and skepticism towards traditional authority. Philosophers like John Locke, natural rights, social contract, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, general will, Voltaire, freedom of speech, religious tolerance, and Montesquieu, separation of powers, articulated powerful ideas of natural rights, the separation of powers, and the social contract. These ideas profoundly impacted political thought and inspired revolutions across the globe, challenging absolute monarchies and advocating for more representative forms of government. While Europe was undergoing its transformative period of exploration, intellectual rebirth, and scientific revolution, powerful empires and complex trade networks continued to shape the destinies of Asia and Africa, often with their own distinct trajectories and interactions with the expanding European presence. In the Near East, the Ottoman Empire continued its vast expansion, stretching across Anatolia, the Balkans, the Middle East, and North Africa. Under rulers like Suleiman the Magnificent, the empire reached its zenith, famously laying siege to Vienna. The Ottomans developed a unique administrative system, including the millet system which allowed religious communities a degree of autonomy, and the formidable janissaries, an elite infantry corps. To the east, the Safavid Empire in Persia, 16th to 18th centuries, established Shia Islam as its state religion, distinguishing itself from the predominantly Sunni Ottomans. This period was marked by significant artistic and architectural achievements, particularly in Isfahan, its capital. In India, the Mughal Empire, 16th to 19th centuries, brought a new era of centralized rule and cultural synthesis. Under emperors like Akbar the Great, the empire initially fostered religious tolerance, leading to a flourishing of art and architecture, exemplified by the iconic Taj Mahal. However, internal strife and the growing influence of European trading companies, particularly the British East India Company, eventually led to its decline. Ming and Qing dynasties continued to rule China. The Ming dynasty, after the grand voyages of Zheng He, largely adopted continued isolationist policies, limiting foreign trade to specific ports like Canton. Despite this, China experienced significant population growth and agricultural improvements. The subsequent Qing dynasty, 1644 to 1912, maintained similar policies for a long period, though facing increasing pressure from European powers seeking greater access to Chinese markets. Japan, under the Tokugawa shogunate, 1603 to 1868, achieved a period of internal peace and unification after centuries of civil war. It established a strict social hierarchy and, most notably, implemented the Sakoku, isolationist policy, severely limiting foreign contact and trade to prevent external influences, particularly Christianity, from destabilizing the nation. Despite this isolation, Japanese arts flourished, with the development of kabuki theater and ukiyo-e woodblock prints. In Africa, the impact of the transatlantic slave trade was devastating and profound. Millions of Africans were forcibly removed from their homes, leading to demographic decline, social disruption, and political instability in many regions. However, this period also saw the rise of new powerful kingdoms like the Ashanti in West Africa and Dahomey, which, tragically, became involved in the slave trade themselves. Despite external pressures, internal trade networks continued to operate, and various African societies maintained their unique cultural and political structures, though increasingly affected by global forces. This era laid the groundwork for the intense European colonization that would characterize the following centuries. The 19th century dawned amidst a whirlwind of political upheaval, as the Enlightenment ideals of liberty, equality, and popular sovereignty, which had simmered for decades, finally erupted into a series of transformative revolutions across the globe. The American Revolution, 1775 to 1783, served as a powerful initial spark. Fueled by Enlightenment principles and grievances over taxation without representation, the American colonies declared their independence, leading to the creation of a new republic founded on the principles of self-governance and individual rights. Its success provided a potent model and inspiration for other revolutionary movements worldwide. Even more radical and far-reaching was the French Revolution, 1789 to 1799. Driven by deep social inequality, a severe economic crisis, and the pervasive influence of Enlightenment ideas, it began with the symbolic storming of the Bastille. It rapidly escalated, leading to the abolition of the monarchy, the establishment of a republic, and a tumultuous period known as the Reign of Terror. While chaotic, the French Revolution fundamentally reshaped European politics, spreading revolutionary ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Its aftermath saw the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte, whose Napoleonic Wars further disseminated these ideals across Europe, inadvertently fostering the powerful force of nationalism as conquered peoples began to assert their own distinct identities. This wave of revolutionary fervor soon spread to the Americas. The Latin American revolutions in the early 19th century, led by figures like Simon Bolivar and José de San Martin, resulted in the independence of vast territories from Spanish and Portuguese colonial rule. However, these newly independent nations faced immense challenges of nation-building, often struggling with political instability, civil wars, and economic dependence on former colonial powers. These revolutions also gave birth to and solidified powerful new political ideologies that would shape the modern world. Liberalism championed individual rights, constitutional government, and free markets. Conservatism advocated for tradition, social order, and established institutions. Nationalism emerged as a particularly potent force, fostering intense loyalty to one's nation-state and driving unification movements, most notably in Germany and Italy, where disparate states coalesced into powerful new nations. Alongside these, socialism emerged as a critique of the burgeoning capitalist system, advocating for collective ownership of the means of production and greater social welfare, laying the groundwork for future social and economic reforms. Even more profound than the political revolutions was the Industrial Revolution, a period of unprecedented technological innovation and economic transformation that began in Great Britain in the late 18th century and rapidly spread across the globe. Its origins in Great Britain can be attributed to a unique confluence of factors: abundant access to coal and iron, vital raw materials, vast colonial resources providing both raw materials and markets, a stable government that fostered innovation, a strong entrepreneurial spirit, and a preceding agricultural revolution that increased food supply and freed up labor for factories. The textile industry was at the forefront of this revolution, with inventions like the spinning jenny and the power loom mechanizing cloth production and dramatically increasing output. The most transformative invention, however, was James Watt's improved steam engine. This versatile power source revolutionized industries, powering factories, driving locomotives that created vast railway networks, and propelling steamboats that transformed global shipping. The ability to produce iron and steel on a massive scale provided the structural backbone for this new industrial age. Industrialization rapidly spread from Britain to continental Europe, Belgium, France, Germany, the United States, and later to Japan. This led to massive urbanization, as people migrated from rural areas to rapidly growing cities in search of factory work. This created new, distinct social classes: a large industrial working class, often referred to as the proletariat, who labored in factories, and a powerful industrial capitalist class, or bourgeoisie, who owned the means of production. The social and economic impact of industrialization was immense and often contradictory. The factory system and mass production led to an unprecedented output of goods, making them more affordable. However, this came at a significant human cost, with harsh working conditions, long hours, low wages, and the widespread use of child labor. These abuses eventually led to the emergence of labor movements advocating for workers' rights and better conditions. Cities became plagued by pollution from factories and overcrowding, leading to poor sanitation and disease. Yet, industrialization also fostered increased global trade and interconnectedness, as goods could be produced and transported more efficiently. It also fueled the rise of consumerism, as more goods became available to a wider segment of the population. Beyond steam power, the 19th century saw a flurry of other technological advancements. The railroads revolutionized transportation. The telegraph transformed long-distance communication, and photography captured images of the world in a new way. New forms of energy were harnessed, paving the way for future innovations. The Industrial Revolution was not merely an economic shift, it was a fundamental reordering of human society, profoundly altering work, daily life, and the relationship between humans and their environment. The economic and technological might unleashed by the Industrial Revolution, combined with the fervent nationalism sweeping Europe, fueled a new and aggressive phase of global expansion known as New Imperialism in the late 19th century. This was distinct from earlier forms of colonialism, characterized by its rapid pace, vast scale, and the direct imposition of political control. The motivations for this renewed imperial drive were complex. Economically, industrializing nations sought new sources of raw materials, like rubber, oil, and minerals, for their factories and new markets for their manufactured goods. Politically, acquiring colonies became a symbol of power and prestige on the global stage, a competitive race among European nations. Socially, ideologies like social Darwinism, the misapplication of Darwinian theory to human societies, suggesting that some races were inherently superior, and the self-proclaimed civilizing mission, provided a moral justification for domination, asserting a duty to bring Western culture, religion, and technology to backward peoples. European powers also possessed significant technological advantages that facilitated their conquests, including quinine, which combated malaria, allowing deeper penetration into Africa, the devastating Maxim gun, the first machine gun, and steamships, which allowed for faster travel up rivers and across oceans. The most dramatic manifestation of new imperialism was the scramble for Africa. Within a few decades, nearly the entire continent was rapidly colonized by European powers, often with little regard for existing political or ethnic boundaries. The infamous Berlin Conference, 1884 to 1885, attended by European powers, arbitrarily divided Africa among themselves, carving up the continent on maps without any African representation. This led to the widespread exploitation of resources, the imposition of European rule, and the systematic disruption of traditional African societies and cultures. Imperialism in Asia also intensified. The British Raj in India saw the direct rule of the subcontinent by the British Crown, leading to economic exploitation and the transformation of Indian society. In China, the Opium Wars forced the opening of Chinese markets to European trade and led to the establishment of spheres of influence, where European powers exerted economic and political control. However, Japan, after its rapid modernization during the Meiji Restoration, 1868 onwards, became an imperial power itself, demonstrating its strength by annexing Korea and Taiwan, and challenging Western dominance in Asia. The consequences of imperialism were far-reaching and continue to resonate today. Colonized regions experienced economic dependence on their imperial masters, their economies restructured to serve the needs of the colonizers. Traditional societies and cultures were often disrupted, and artificial borders drawn by colonial powers led to future ethnic and political conflicts. While imperialism did lead to the spread of Western ideas and institutions, like education and legal systems, it also provoked powerful resistance movements that would eventually lead to decolonization in the 20th century. Ultimately, imperialism dramatically increased global interconnectedness, but on profoundly unequal terms, creating a world divided between dominant industrial powers and exploited colonial territories. The 20th century began with a catastrophic rupture, shattering the relative peace and optimism of the preceding industrial age. World War I, 1914 to 1918, was a global conflict of unprecedented scale, born from a complex interplay of causes: fervent nationalism, intense imperial rivalries, escalating militarism, and a rigid system of alliances that dragged nations into conflict. It introduced the horrors of trench warfare and new, devastating technologies like tanks, poison gas, and airplanes. The war became a total war, mobilizing entire societies and resulting in mass casualties on a scale never before seen. Its conclusion brought the Treaty of Versailles and the establishment of the League of Nations, an attempt at collective security that ultimately failed. The war also led to the collapse of vast empires: the Ottoman, Austro-Hungarian, Russian, and German empires, redrawing the map of Europe and the Middle East. The interwar period, 1918 to 1939, was marked by instability and crisis. The Great Depression, a global economic downturn, caused widespread unemployment and social unrest. This fertile ground allowed for the rise of totalitarian ideologies: communism in the Soviet Union under Stalin, fascism in Italy under Mussolini, and Nazism in Germany under Hitler. These regimes suppressed individual liberties, glorified the state, and pursued aggressive expansionist policies, while the international community's failure of collective security and policy of appeasement proved tragically inadequate. This instability culminated in World War II, 1939 to 1945, an even larger and more destructive global conflict. Driven by the aggression of the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the world's inability to halt them, the war saw unprecedented levels of destruction and human suffering. It included the horrific Holocaust, the systematic genocide of 6 million Jews, and ended with the dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, ushering in the nuclear age. The war's aftermath saw the formation of the United Nations, a more robust attempt at international cooperation, and the emergence of two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, poised for a new kind of global struggle. The mid-20th century was dominated by the Cold War, 1947 to 1991, an ideological conflict between the capitalist, democratic bloc led by the USA and the communist bloc led by the USSR. This was a Cold War because it largely avoided direct military confrontation between the superpowers, instead manifesting through proxy wars, e.g., Korea, Vietnam, an intense arms race, including nuclear weapons, and a competitive space race. The threat of nuclear deterrence shaped global politics, creating a constant tension. Symbolic divisions like the Berlin Wall and the Iron Curtain physically and ideologically separated East and West. The Cold War finally ended with the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, marking the end of a bipolar world order. Simultaneously, the post-World War II era witnessed a rapid wave of decolonization. Exhausted by war and facing growing nationalist movements, European colonial empires rapidly dismantled. Countries across Asia and Africa, such as India, Ghana, and Algeria, gained their independence. However, these newly independent nations faced immense challenges of nation building, grappling with poverty, political instability, and the legacies of colonial rule. Many joined the non-aligned movement, seeking to avoid allegiance to either superpower bloc. This period also saw the rise of new global structures. The United Nations became a crucial forum for international cooperation and peacekeeping. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) and the World Bank were established to promote global economic stability and development. This era also saw the increasing rise of multinational corporations, whose economic influence began to transcend national borders. Beyond the geopolitical shifts, the 20th century was a crucible of breathtaking technological revolutions that fundamentally reshaped human life. The Green Revolution in the mid-20th century dramatically increased agricultural productivity through the development of new high-yield crop varieties, synthetic fertilizers, and pesticides. This had a profound impact on global food supply and contributed to unprecedented population growth. The space age began with the Soviet Union's Sputnik launch and culminated in the American Apollo moon landing, symbolizing humanity's reach beyond Earth. This era also spurred the development of satellite technology, revolutionizing global communication and weather forecasting. The latter half of the century was defined by the information age, driven by the invention of computers, the Internet, and personal computing. This brought a revolution in communication, providing unprecedented access to information and profoundly impacting economy, society, and culture. Medical advancements were equally transformative. The discovery of antibiotics, the development of vaccines, and the global eradication of diseases like smallpox dramatically increased life expectancy and improved public health worldwide. These technological and economic changes were accompanied by powerful social movements advocating for greater equality and justice. The civil rights movement in the United States challenged racial segregation and discrimination. Feminist movements fought for gender equality and women's rights. Growing awareness of environmental degradation led to powerful environmental movements. And LGBTQ+ rights movements began to advocate for the rights and recognition of sexual minorities. All these forces converged to accelerate globalization, a process of increased interconnectedness of economies, cultures, and societies across the world. This involved the freer flow of goods, capital, information, and people across national borders. While fostering unprecedented exchange and cooperation, globalization also presented challenges. Increasing inequality between and within nations, concerns about cultural homogenization, and the emergence of global crises that required international cooperation to address. As we step into the 21st century, the narrative of human history continues to unfold at an accelerating pace, characterized by both formidable challenges and unprecedented opportunities. The geopolitical landscape is undergoing significant shifts. We are witnessing the rise of new global powers like China and India, reshaping the economic and political balance of power. While major interstate wars have been less frequent, regional conflicts persist, and the threat of terrorism remains a global concern. These dynamics often present challenges to the established international order and institutions built in the aftermath of World War II. Perhaps the most pressing challenge facing humanity is the environmental crisis. Climate change and global warming, driven by human activity, pose existential threats, leading to extreme weather events, rising sea levels, and ecosystem disruption. Deforestation, biodiversity loss, and resource depletion further exacerbate these issues. While there are increasing international efforts to address these environmental challenges, achieving meaningful global cooperation remains a significant hurdle. The pace of technological acceleration is breathtaking. Artificial intelligence is rapidly advancing, promising to revolutionize industries, healthcare, and daily life, while also raising profound ethical implications regarding job displacement, privacy, and control. Biotechnology offers incredible potential for medical breakthroughs and genetic engineering, but also presents complex moral dilemmas. The nascent field of quantum computing hints at computational power beyond current comprehension. These advancements are driving rapid societal transformations, creating new industries and ways of living, but also exacerbating the digital divide between those with access to technology and those without. Global health remains a critical concern. The early 2020s saw the devastating impact of pandemics like COVID-19, highlighting the interconnectedness of global health and the need for robust international responses. While advances in medicine continue to improve human well-being, persistent health disparities exist between developed and developing nations, and within societies themselves. Social and cultural dynamics are also in constant flux. Demographic shifts, including aging populations in many developed countries and significant global migration patterns, are reshaping societies. Identity politics and cultural clashes are prominent features of contemporary discourse, often fueled by the rise of populism and a questioning of traditional institutions. The ongoing evolution of human rights continues, with new movements advocating for greater inclusion and justice for marginalized groups. Economically, the world has experienced periods of financial crises and global recessions, demonstrating the interconnectedness and fragility of the global financial system. The rise of the gig economy has transformed labor markets, offering flexibility but also raising concerns about worker protections. Debates on the merits of capitalism and the exploration of alternative economic models are ongoing, as societies grapple with issues of inequality and sustainability. As we reflect on 10,000 years of human history, several key themes emerge as constant threads woven through the tapestry of time. Humanity's remarkable capacity for adaptation and innovation stands out, from the earliest tools to the most advanced AI. The constant interplay of cooperation and conflict has driven both progress and destruction. We have witnessed the accelerating pace of change, with each subsequent era bringing more rapid and widespread transformations than the last. And perhaps most significantly, the increasing interconnectedness of humanity has bound our fates together, making global challenges truly global. Looking to the uncertain future, humanity faces immense challenges: the existential threat of climate change, persistent global inequality, the disruptive power of rapidly advancing technology, and ongoing geopolitical instability. Yet, there are also immense opportunities: the potential for scientific breakthroughs to solve pressing problems, the capacity for global cooperation to address shared crises, and the possibility for more sustainable and equitable development. Revisiting this slow perspective, it reminds us that even the rapid changes of our contemporary world are part of a longer, slower historical arc. It underscores the resilience and adaptability of the human species, our enduring capacity to overcome adversity and innovate. The human story is not a static record of the past, but an ongoing narrative of human ingenuity, folly, and aspiration, constantly being written by each generation. Understanding this history, with all its complexities and contradictions, is not merely an academic exercise. It is essential to navigate the present and shape a more informed and hopeful future. From the delicate balance of hunter-gatherer existence at the close of the last ice age, through the revolutionary dawn of agriculture, the rise and fall of magnificent empires, the global interconnectedness forged by exploration, the transformative power of industrialization, and the tumultuous conflicts and technological leaps of the modern era, Humanity has embarked on an extraordinary journey over the past 10,000 years. We have witnessed the incredible transformations from small, nomadic bands to a globally interconnected, technologically advanced, yet still challenged species. The story is one of relentless adaptation, ceaseless innovation, and the enduring human drive to understand, build, and connect. It is a story punctuated by moments of profound cooperation and devastating conflict, by the pursuit of knowledge and the grip of ignorance, by soaring achievements and tragic failures. The enduring questions about human nature, our capacity for both creation and destruction, our relentless pursuit of progress, and our ultimate destiny remain. History is not just a collection of facts and dates. It is a living, breathing tapestry, ever unfolding, with each passing moment adding new threads to its intricate design. And as we stand at the threshold of an uncertain future, understanding the vast and complex narrative of our past becomes not just a matter of curiosity, but a crucial guide for the journey ahead.